Welcome back once again to another Battlebots review. Thank you all for waiting and your patience. It's genuinely really appreciated. Oh man, we are gonna get right into this. Let's not waste any time. Let's just jump right in. So the episode starts off once again with Chris and Kenny introducing us and a look at the fight card, which as always looks like a lot of fun. We get Triton's third attempt in the battle box. We get Bloodsport versus Rotator and so much more. I can't wait to talk about this. And in our first fight, it's Black Dragon versus Beta. Heading in, Black Dragon has gone 23 fights with no KO, close to beating Byforce's record of 25. Now, I'm going to say right away, the moment I saw that, I feared that this is setting us up for Riptide to stop this record from being broken. My prediction right away, as soon as I saw that, was Beta is not going to knock them out. I mean, obviously, even if Beta wins, Beta's not a robot that knocks people out. And I have a feeling that Riptide will. But, well, let's see how well this ages. Anyway, Beta comes out and... No, Beta, not the anti-vert front again! Oh my god, it never ends. Now, I did like the little detail of letting a Kilohertz toy press the button, showing the ancestry of Beta in a fun little nod. My god, John Rick's been in this a long time. The fight begins and Beta raced right out of the gate while Black Dragon got up to speed and got a huge shot in, knocking Beta in the air. There were some more nice hits and the stuff holding the frame of Beta are coming off with each successive hit. It's definitely a little more loose as Beta tries to keep going. Beta tries swinging the hammer, but they just aren't able to get that much in as Black Dragon gets another hit from behind this time, followed by one gigantic hit. Beta is basically done as it's flipped over and they call for Black Dragon to stop, saying that they're done. A crazy opener and Black Dragon looks as strong as ever. I know that the whole point of this frame is to try and lessen as much damage as possible taken from vertical spinners, but I really hope that they can figure something out, because I don't want it to, because this seems like a case of they know they're going to lose, so they're just going to take as little damage as possible, which is fine. In terms of the fight nights, that's fine. But if they get into the tournament, they can't afford to do that, because then one loss and it's over. Beta really needs a way to get underneath opponents. But Black Dragon looks as great as ever. Team Warrior are so good. They may not have the most blow-away weapon ever, but they've just got everything dialed in. It's just a very reliable, capable robot. Anyway, we move on now to Cobalt versus Overhaul, and... oh, poor Overhaul. This was not gonna be pretty. Cobalt comes out with their old school blade, allowing them to get little mini digs in with some of the smaller teeth, and enormous chunks taken out with that large tooth. It's definitely my favourite of their spinning choices, as it's just, in my opinion, it's iconic to that design. Overhaul, meanwhile, comes out with forks that would make Endgame proud. Still, only 2 hinged wedgelets. They also doubled up their rear wheels as well, I imagine in case of driving accidents. The battle begins, and Cobalt gets right up to speed, went after Overhaul, and initially got stuck. Overhaul, if they'd have left Cobalt, I feel would have won, but they did end up freeing them, which was good. Whether that was an accident or good sportsmanship, Cobalt repaid them in the only way it knows how, sending them up into the air. Soon Cobalt went for a second shot, ripping the entire mount for one half of the hinged forks, sending shrapnel everywhere. A second shot takes out one of the wheels and the other forks mounting. Overhaul continues driving, but they're definitely worth the wear at this point, as Cobalt keeps spinning hard and are ready to go for the kill. They do struggle a bit with the floor seams and are unable to get that crucial next blow at first, only getting sparks until they finally send Overhaul into the wall and up and over, killing them. Cobalt teasingly keeps going back and forth, but show restraint as Overhaul is counted out. This is another short but sweet fight right here, as Cobalt dismantled Overhaul. They have to have one of the most devastating weapons in the competition right now, up there with the likes of Riptide for sure. If the Cobalt team decided to go too far, they'd make what happened to Shredderator seem like child's play. I also want to thank Overhaul for freeing them. Be it accident or on purpose, it stopped the fight from being a dud, even if it did mean a loss for them. Next up is Switchback versus Ominous, two robots who I feel are still very much unproven this season, and I was very interested to see how they would do. Now the fight began and both robots are a little cautious at first. They collide but there's no real hit. On that, Ominous then roars up to speed and sends Switchback flying. They have to self-right but Switchback's beak is broken off. However, Switchback keeps going and Ominous is then flipped over. Ominous is unable to self-right and is counted out. Man, what a shame. That fight made me feel bad for Ominous more than anything, as for a brief moment it really was beginning to show its potential, but the system is just not where it needs to be this season. Switchback really won purely by surviving, as Ominous seemed to really die on its own sword. Triton versus Glitch was up next, which I had a feeling was going to be a very short but sweet fight. Don't get me wrong, these are two robots that I definitely like, but you got Triton whose armor is made out of basically paper, and then you've got Glitch who has had an absolute shocker this time around. Will Bales joined the commentary for this one, and I definitely seemed to feel like the fight was going to be very short, as they tried to get as much out of Will as possible before the fight. Like, they know that this could end at any second, so they need to get Will to just say as much as possible. The battle begins and both robots get spinning up before going weapon to weapon. Triton keeps spinning, but Glitch begins smoking. At first, Glitch's weapon does seem to be dead, but they begin spinning up again, meaning both robots can keep fighting. A second shot disables Triton's weapon, and Triton is in an unenviable position, as they now need to approach a death-humming Glitch, who isn't moving that well, and sure they're smoking up a storm, but Triton had little that they could do. One wrong move and they get torn to shreds. Triton actually does manage to time a few pushes perfectly, getting them up against the wall, to the point where they couldn't move anymore, and then actually use Glitch's own weapon energy against them, causing Glitch to flip up and over where they're counted out. Honestly, it might be because my expectations were so low, but the fight was better than expected. Both robots got some major hits in, and while both robots struggled with their reliability, it actually managed to be used for an unexpected strategy and outcome. And to me, it's always awesome to see teams adapt. Like, things don't always go exactly how you planned it, but if you can manage to keep your robot going, if you can find a way to win even when things look dire, that's pretty cool in my opinion. Next up was Gigabyte versus Starchild, and I actually felt that Gigabyte had this going in, as Gigabyte is kind of hard to approach if you've not got like a big sturdy wedge, and Starchild has been having troubles with its precision. Now Gigabyte came in with a special attachment to try and deal additional damage to Starchild, which really piqued my interest, and oh boy did it deliver. The fight begins and Gigabyte gets up to speed, though at first seemed a little unsteady. They end up taking a bite out of Starchild from the first hit, though they do need some time to recover. A second shot in then does some major damage to Starchild's wheels. They continue to do damage as Starchild is struggling to do much of anything as they slowly begin to lose traction, as Gigabyte just takes chunks out of the wheel. Gigabyte keeps going, and while it is unsteady, which is revealed to be as at some point it lost one of its wings, it is causing so much damage to Starchild, who at this point is just struggling to do anything, as the wheels begin bending and buckling, and Starchild's spinner also seems to have died at this point. It looks like Gigabyte's other wing breaks off at some point, meaning it's mainly the shell doing damage at the end, but still, the damage that is done throughout this fight is incredibly impressive. Starchild barely survives the full 3 minutes as the wheels have enough to keep them moving, but this fight was an obvious one as the judges gave it to Gigabyte. And I gotta say, this has to be Gigabyte's best performance ever. Like, no question in my mind on that one. Starchild really couldn't do much of anything, and Gigabyte just adapted so well to the situation. Chris and Kenny mentioned Gigabyte will be facing Endgame in their final fight, and ask if they can win. No. Now then, it's time for the main event hype package, which is about Bloodsport and Rotator, who are typically pretty high tier robots that have had some struggles finding their footings and both needing to redeem themselves. Listening to the strategies, of course, was interesting, and I was excited to see which robot would begin the path of redemption. But before that, we had Captain Shredderator versus Jackpot, who were both 1 and 2, and on their last fight before consideration for the round of 32. Shredderator has mentioned how they apparently barely managed to get something working in time, which is crazy given how usually teams will have 5 billion different versions of each thing. But given the amount of damage, there may have just been things that they didn't have replacements for that they had to repair. And I don't know, like, I don't know how all this works. I'm not going to pretend to know. All I can imagine is, after you bring back a robot that looks the way it did after the Riptide fight, probably not going to be easy to get back into the fight. Anyway, the battle begins and Shredderator bumps into the wall, preventing them from being able to spin up in time. Jackpot gets some small digs in and Shredderator tries to get out but is backed into the wall again. Jackpot continues and Shredderator takes a while to get out of the corner, only for a large hit from Jackpot to knock them back in. Shredderator's blows are easily bouncing off Jackpot's wedge as Jackpot continues to smack them about. Shredderator gets smacked by the Pulverizer next as they try to run away, but Jackpot is relentless, continuing in on them and trying to suffocate that spinner, which is a classic strategy. Jackpot's spinner isn't running at 100% anymore though, and isn't quite getting the hits it might want. There's some more glancing blows until finally one huge hit takes a chunk out of Shredderator's shell. Jackpot's weapon has finally seemed to die down, while Shredderator shockingly is still spinning hard and fast, but the wedge on Jackpot is very good at deflecting the blows, with only a good few shots from the captain as it goes to the judges. It goes to Jackpot's, which I can't say I'm too surprised about. If this is Shredderator's last fight, then towards the end they managed to claw back the fight to stop it being a complete squash, but I wouldn't say it was a great fight. But both robots did keep it as interesting as possible. But it's time for the main event, Bloodsport versus Rotator. Now Bloodsport comes out apparently with some extra armor in the head area to try and avoid what happened to Icewave in the past, as the head is an obvious weak spot, as we saw when I believe Icewave fought Rotator. Now Rotator meanwhile replaces its wedgelets with a plow to deal with Bloodsport's weapon, and the battle begins and both robots are up to speed really quickly. Bloodsport gets a good shot in, and you can see Rotator's armor bending already with a big gash in. There's some nice back and forth with the weapons, though Bloodsport is definitely getting the better of things, but a shot in return sends Bloodsport into the screws, where they're stuck for a moment, and you could see that they lost their flexlets in the exchange. They finally do get free, and the weapon quickly gets back up to speed again. Rotator is moving more slowly now from the damage, and another hit takes out their weapon. And with a final hit, while Bloodsport does lose its face and exposes the inner workings of the head, Rotator stops entirely. That is shocking, because if Rotator kept going just a little bit more, with the exposed inner workings, they might have been able to claw this back, but they get counted out. Now, this wasn't much of a fight, as Rotator, I would actually say, was decimated, but they did get a few shots in. This was like watching Brock Lesnar in the WWE. Your favourite wrestler might get a few moves in, but soon they just get completely destroyed. Overall, this was a decent episode of Battlebots. I wouldn't say there was a fight that had me extremely excited, but generally speaking, it was pretty good, and I didn't feel too shortchanged by any of the fights. Definitely recommend checking this one out if you haven't already, which, given how this episode was delayed, my apologies again, you probably already have. With that all being said, I hope you all enjoyed this review. If you did, please be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to hit that notification bell for more. I plan on getting more reviews out for Battlebots as the season goes on, as well as for future seasons of Battlebots, past seasons of Battlebots, and other robot combat shows. I'm currently doing Robot Wars Series 1, and I'm hoping to cover Robo Games, which is airing on Twitch between April 6th and April 9. So if you want to watch Robo Games live, then definitely check out twitch.tv/RoboGames. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a review on it, hopefully by my birthday, so fingers crossed. But with that all being, so yeah, if you're enjoying these reviews, be sure to subscribe to the channel because there's plenty more coming in the pipeline. With that all being said, I'll see you all next time. Bye guys!